You just got out of your own way. A transmission for the chosen, the obstacle that was never outside. There comes a moment on the path of the chosen where something quiet but monumental happens. It does not arrive with fireworks. It does not come with applause. It arrives as a realization. The realization that the greatest barrier you have faced was never the world. It was the resistance within you. For years you thought the delays were punishment. You thought the detours were misfortune. You believed that the universe was withholding something from you. But now you see clearly. Nothing meant for you was ever withheld. It was waiting. Waiting for the moment you stepped aside from your own obstruction. Waiting for the moment you stopped arguing with your own calling. Waiting for the moment you released the patterns that kept you looping in smaller timelines. And that moment has arrived. You have finally moved out of your own way. Not because someone forced you, not because life suddenly became easier, but because you became honest. Honest about your fears. Honest about your habits. Honest about the ways you protected comfort instead of honoring purpose. And when honesty enters the room, illusions leave. The path that was always meant for you begins to open. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment below so we know you're here and connected to Source. The invisible wall of self-sabotage. Self-sabotage is rarely loud. It does not always look like destruction. Often, it appears as hesitation, procrastination, doubt disguised as caution. You may say, "I'm not ready yet. I need more time. I should wait until things feel perfect." But the deeper truth is this: perfection was never the requirement. Alignment was. When you sabotage yourself, you are not rejecting opportunity. You are rejecting responsibility. Because receiving what you asked for requires becoming someone capable of holding it. And becoming that person requires change. Change asks you to release old identities. The identity that said you were unlucky. The identity that said you were overlooked. The identity that said the world owed you recognition. These identities feel familiar, even comforting, but they also keep you standing in front of doors that have already opened. Self-sabotage is the act of blocking your own entrance. And the chosen often sabotage themselves not because they lack ability, but because they sense the magnitude of their purpose. Purpose can feel intimidating. It asks you to grow, to evolve, to step beyond the comfort of who you have been. But the moment you recognize sabotage, its power weakens. Awareness dismantles the invisible wall. The moment the path clears, there is a sacred moment when the internal resistance dissolves. It feels like breathing deeper than you have in years, like the air around you has changed. In truth, the world did not change. You did. You stopped arguing with your own evolution. You stopped negotiating with your excuses. You stopped shrinking to fit rooms that were never meant to contain you. And when that happens, something remarkable occurs. Flow begins. Synchronicities increase. Opportunities appear where before there were obstacles. You meet people who speak your language. Ideas that once felt distant suddenly feel possible. This is not coincidence. This is the natural consequence of alignment. The universe does not need to chase you with blessings. It simply needs you to stop running from them. When you move out of your own way, the path that was always prepared becomes visible. Higher timelines require clear passage. Imagine your life as a river. At its source, the water is pure, strong, and determined to reach the ocean. But along the journey, debris can accumulate. Branches fall into the stream. Rocks obstruct the current. Mud thickens the flow. The water still moves, but slowly. This debris is what self-sabotage creates in your timeline. Fear becomes a branch. Doubt becomes a stone. Old programming becomes sediment. The river does not stop existing, but it cannot flow freely until the obstructions are removed. When you clear the debris, the current accelerates. Suddenly, the water moves with power again. This is what happens when you step aside from your own resistance. Higher timelines do not require force. They require space. Space for your potential to move. Space for opportunity to reach you. Space for your gifts to unfold without the constant interference of your own hesitation. You did not create the river, but you can remove the stones. Letting go of the identity that held you back. For many chosen ones, the hardest part of transformation is not learning something new. It is releasing who they used to be. You may have carried an identity for years, the misunderstood one, the overlooked one, the one who struggled more than others. These identities were not entirely false. They were chapters of your story, but they were never meant to be the final page. When you step out of your own way, you release the need to prove how difficult your journey was. You no longer carry your wounds as proof of your worth. You honor them, but you do not remain defined by them. And this shift creates enormous freedom, because once you release the identity of struggle, you become available to the identity of creation. You are no longer reacting to life. You are shaping it. Flow is not luck, it is alignment. Many people look at those who seem to move effortlessly through life and assume they are lucky. But flow is rarely luck. It is alignment. Flow occurs when your inner decisions match your outer direction, when your beliefs support your goals, when your actions reflect your intentions. In flow, effort still exists, but it is purposeful effort. Instead of pushing against your own resistance, your energy moves forward. The chosen often reach this point after years of internal conflict, after confronting shadows, after releasing patterns. And when flow arrives, it feels like relief. Not because life becomes easy, but because you are finally walking with yourself instead of against yourself. The blessings were always looking for you. One of the great misunderstandings of life is the belief that we must chase everything we desire. In truth, many things are already moving toward us. Opportunities seek capable hands. Communities seek authentic leaders. Ideas seek creators brave enough to bring them into form. But when you are trapped in self-doubt, you become difficult to find. Your energy sends mixed signals. You say you want growth, but you protect comfort. You say you want opportunity, but you avoid risk. You say you want expansion, but you cling to familiar limits. The universe listens carefully. And when your signals are unclear, it pauses, not to punish you, but to wait until your energy becomes coherent. The moment you step out of your own way, your signal changes. And suddenly, what was always seeking you begins to arrive. Your role is to remain clear. Now that the path is opening, your responsibility is not to force outcomes. It is to remain clear. Clear in your intention. Clear in your discipline. Clear in your boundaries. Clarity keeps the path open. Old habits may attempt to return. Fear may whisper again. Doubt may visit. But you now recognize these voices. You understand that they are echoes of the old timeline. You do not need to fight them. You simply refuse to give them authority. The chosen do not maintain alignment by perfection. They maintain it by awareness. And awareness keeps the river flowing. The courage to receive. Many people believe the hardest part of transformation is letting go. In truth, another challenge appears after that: receiving. When you have lived for years believing things will be difficult, when you have learned to survive instead of thrive, the nervous system can become accustomed to struggle. Even when the path clears, a part of you may still expect resistance. You may wonder if the good things arriving are temporary. You may question whether you truly deserve the opportunities unfolding before you. This is where courage returns. Not the courage to fight, the courage to receive. Receiving requires openness. It requires the willingness to let abundance, collaboration, recognition, and growth enter your life without suspicion. The chosen often spend years proving their resilience. But resilience was never the final destination. It was preparation. Preparation for a life where your gifts could finally circulate freely. When you step out of your own way, the universe does not test your worthiness. It simply asks if you are ready to hold what you asked for. Receiving is an act of trust. Trust that the work you have done internally has prepared you. Trust that the life now arriving is not accidental. Trust that you are capable of carrying what once seemed distant. The discipline of staying out of your way. Moving out of your own way is a breakthrough. Remaining out of your own way is a practice. Old patterns do not disappear completely. They fade through consistent awareness. You may notice moments when hesitation tries to return. Moments when the mind whispers, maybe you should slow down. Maybe you should shrink again. Maybe this is too much. These whispers are not enemies. They are reminders of where you used to stand. Instead of reacting to them, you acknowledge them. And then you continue moving. Discipline is not harshness. It is loyalty to your growth. It is the quiet commitment to remain aligned with the person you have become. Each time you choose clarity over confusion, your path strengthens. Each time you act with integrity instead of fear, your timeline stabilizes. The chosen maintain momentum, not by chasing success, but by honoring alignment daily. And alignment, once practiced long enough, becomes natural. The timeline that was always waiting. There exists a version of your life that has always been available. A timeline where your gifts are expressed fully. A timeline where your ideas become creations. A timeline where your presence inspires others simply by being authentic. This timeline was never hidden from you. It simply required a different version of you to access it. The version of you who believed less in limitation. The version of you who trusted your intuition. The version of you who refused to sabotage the very life you prayed for. Now that you have stepped out of your own way, this timeline becomes visible. You may notice subtle shifts, conversations that open doors, ideas that arrive with clarity, people who recognize the frequency you carry. These are not coincidences. They are signals that your internal movement has created external movement. Life responds to coherence, and coherence has returned to you. The chosen often search for signs that they are on the right path, but the most powerful sign is peace, the quiet sense that you are finally walking in the direction you were always meant to travel. You do not need to rush. You do not need to prove. You simply continue moving with intention. The timeline that was waiting for you has begun unfolding. And this time, there is nothing standing in its way, because the only thing that once blocked it was you, and you have moved. The flow has begun. Chosen one, you have finally done something powerful. You moved, not physically, internally. You stepped aside from the fears that blocked your path. You released the hesitation that slowed your timeline. You stopped negotiating with the parts of you that preferred comfort over calling. And because of this, something beautiful is happening now. Life can finally reach you. The opportunities that were circling, the people meant to collaborate with you, the ideas meant to become creations. They are no longer waiting at the edge of your resistance. The flow has begun. Remain open, remain grounded, remain aware. You do not need to chase what is meant for you. You simply need to remain out of your own way, because the life that was always aligned with you has finally found clear passage. Ancient One, we now ask you, what pattern did you finally release that had been quietly blocking your progress? Or what fear kept you standing in front of doors that were already open? And what happens when you step through them now? Please be sure to comment below, like and subscribe to stay aligned and connected to Source.